My parents called me uneducated trash and threw me out. "Get out, you lowlife," Dad yelled. They had no idea I make $20 million. I just said, "Okay, fine," and walked away without a fight. The next day, I moved into my beach house in Florida. 3 weeks later, I had spent years, my entire adult life really, trying to earn the respect of the very people who should have believed in me most, my family. But nothing, not even secretly propping them up financially, could prepare me for the moment my own father looked me in the eye and called me uneducated trash at his 60th birthday dinner, ordering me out of his house like I was a stranger. I still remember the crushing weight of those words, the sting of betrayal that night. But what he, or any of them, didn't know then was that the universe has a funny way of delivering justice. And 3 weeks later, when the truth finally caught up with them, the look on his face, that, my friends, was worth every single tear I had ever shed. Before I dive into how I went from supporting my family to being publicly shamed by my own dad, take a second and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. If you've ever felt underestimated by the people who were supposed to be your biggest cheerleaders, hit that like button and subscribe. Growing up in a pretty average neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, the expectations for my future were crystal clear. My dad, William, worked as an accountant at the same firm for 3 decades, and he was absolutely convinced that a college degree was the only legitimate key to success. My mom, Patricia, an elementary school teacher, quietly echoed his sentiments. I always felt a little different from my older siblings, Thomas and Jennifer, who both seemed to effortlessly embrace that traditional path. Even at age 10, I had this entrepreneurial spark that genuinely puzzled my parents. While other kids were playing tag or video games after school, I was meticulously running an elaborate lemonade stand, offering different flavors and even loyalty cards for my regular customers. By 13, I was the neighborhood's go-to tech kid, fixing computers for $20 an hour when the local shop charged $75. My parents, bless their hearts, just saw these ventures as cute hobbies, nothing more. "Amanda needs to focus on academics instead of these little business projects," my father would often declare at dinner. "These games won't pay the bills when she grows up." High school was a battle. I managed decent grades, mostly to keep the peace, but my free time was dedicated to devouring business books and following online entrepreneurs. While my siblings joined clubs that would pad their college applications, I was quietly launching an online store selling custom-designed phone cases. I made almost $2,000 before graduation, which felt like a fortune to me. Despite my gut screaming otherwise, I enrolled in community college. It was purely to appease my parents. 1 semester. That's all it took to confirm what I already knew deep down. The structured environment felt like a cage, stifling any creativity. And the business courses? They taught outdated concepts by professors who, ironically, had never actually run a company. When I finally worked up the courage to tell my parents I was dropping out to chase my own business ideas, the argument lasted for days. "You'll throw your life away," my father roared, his face turning an angry shade of red. "No child of mine will be a college dropout working minimum wage jobs forever." Nevertheless, at 19, I walked away from school with only $2,000 saved from my various side hustles. Those first months were brutal, a harsh reality check. I rented a tiny studio apartment in a truly questionable neighborhood, the kind where you learned never to do laundry after dark. My diet consisted almost entirely of ramen noodles and discount grocery items, while I worked 18-hour days trying to build my e-commerce platform. My first 3 business attempts crashed and burned spectacularly. I lost money on a dropshipping venture when my suppliers repeatedly sent defective products. My social media management service collapsed because I utterly underpriced my work and burned myself out trying to serve too many clients. And my attempt at creating handmade jewelry? It never scaled beyond occasional sales at local markets. Each failure was a punch to the gut, but also a priceless lesson. I learned about supply chain management the hard way, discovered proper client contract structures through painful, real-world experience, and understood production scalability by hitting its hard limits firsthand. College couldn't have taught me any of that. The turning point, the moment everything shifted, came when I met Sophia at a local business networking event. She was 20 years my senior, with multiple successful company exits under her belt. She saw something in me, a drive and potential that my family never did. Sophia became the mentor I desperately needed, sharing practical business wisdom without an ounce of judgment about my lack of formal education. Education comes in many forms, Amanda, she told me over coffee one afternoon. Some of the most successful people I know learn by doing, not by sitting in classrooms. With Sophia's guidance, I refined my business model. At 22, I launched an e-commerce platform that connected small American manufacturers with customers actively seeking locally made products. The timing couldn't have been more perfect, riding a growing wave of interest in supporting small businesses and domestic manufacturing. Those early days demanded immense sacrifice. I converted half of my tiny apartment into a makeshift office, sleeping on a futon that doubled as my couch. My desktop computer and printer consumed most of my living space. I would work from 5 in the morning until 11 at night, literally handling everything from website coding to customer service calls. The big breakthrough came about 8 months in when a popular lifestyle blogger featured one of our artisan partners. Orders flooded in, overwhelming our basic systems. I worked 72 hours straight, fueled by pure adrenaline, fulfilling orders and frantically upgrading our website infrastructure. That single feature brought in $10,000 in revenue, more money than I had ever seen in my account. Excited, I called my parents to share my progress. My father's response was, predictably, cautiously skeptical. "That's nice, honey, but it's probably just temporary. You know, you can always go back to college when this thing runs its course." His words stung, a familiar wound, but they also ignited a fiercer determination within me. I would prove him wrong, not with arguments, but with undeniable, overwhelming success. The next 5 years were a blur of relentless growth and unexpected challenges. My e-commerce platform, which I proudly named Heartland Made, expanded rapidly. We started with just 27 artisan partners in 3 states. By year 3, we represented over 400 manufacturers and craftspeople across all 50 states, connecting them with customers who truly valued American-made products. Every stage of growth brought its own unique headaches. When our server crashed during a major promotion, I stayed up for 48 hours straight, working with developers to restore the site, personally answering customer emails to maintain goodwill. When a larger competitor tried to poach our top sellers with promises of better terms, I drove to meet each one in person, strengthening relationships and improving our commission structure. The most difficult period came during year 2 when cash flow nearly strangled the business. We were growing too fast for our capital base, with inventory needs outpacing revenue. I went without a salary for 4 months, moved to an even smaller apartment to cut expenses, and negotiated extended payment terms with suppliers. Those months forged a financial discipline in me that would serve me incredibly well as the company continued to expand. Major milestones arrived in rapid succession. Our first actual office was a converted industrial space downtown, where I hired 3 employees to handle customer service and seller relations. Crossing $1 million in annual revenue happened midway through year 3, a moment I celebrated alone, with a single glass of champagne in my office after everyone else had left. Through it all, I kept my growing success relatively quiet with my family. They knew I had a website business that was doing okay, but I deliberately downplayed the true scale of our growth. Their initial discouragement had created a barrier, a wall I just couldn't bring myself to cross. Part of me, I guess, still desperately hoped they would eventually ask detailed questions about my work, showing genuine interest, but those conversations never materialized. Despite their lukewarm support, I continued to help my family financially whenever they needed it. When my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer during year 4 of my business, I anonymously paid the $75,000 in medical expenses not covered by their insurance. My father later mentioned an insurance settlement that had miraculously saved them from medical debt, never suspecting the true source. My brother Thomas faced challenges with the down payment for his first house, his bank account falling $40,000 short of what he needed. I created a family loan through a separate, untraceable account, making it appear as though it came from a distant, wealthy uncle. He accepted the money readily, but still continued making condescending comments about me getting a real job with benefits whenever we discussed my career. My sister Jennifer had dreamed of a perfect wedding since childhood. When her fiancé Daniel lost his job 6 months before the ceremony, I covered the $50,000 shortfall for the venue and catering. Jennifer knew the money came from me but minimized my contribution at family gatherings, referring to my little website business that was having a good year. The disconnect between my actual success and my family's dismissive perception created an increasingly painful internal conflict. By day, I was leading strategy meetings for a multi-million-dollar company, making decisions that affected hundreds of partner businesses and negotiating with major retail chains for exclusive collections. By night, I was fielding texts from family members who still treated me like the college dropout who just got lucky with an internet thing. My company headquarters expanded to a full floor in a prestigious downtown office building, boasting 38 full-time employees and a robust internship program. Our valuation reached an astounding $20 million after a profile in Business Insider brought attention from several investors. I maintained majority ownership, turning down acquisition offers that would have made me instantly wealthy, but cost me control of my vision. As my father's 60th birthday approached, I made a decision. It was time to be honest about my success. Not to boast, but to finally break through the misconceptions and perhaps, just perhaps, gain the respect I had been seeking for years. I purchased a substantial gift, a fully paid retirement investment account, and planned to present it along with the truth about my business at his birthday dinner. The night before the dinner, I rehearsed what I would say. I was no longer the uncertain 19-year-old seeking approval. I was a successful entrepreneur who had created opportunities for hundreds of American manufacturers and dozens of employees. Surely, that would finally earn my father's respect and change how my family viewed my unconventional path. I couldn't have been more wrong. The evening of my father's 60th birthday began pleasantly enough. Their house looked exactly as it had throughout my childhood, with the same familiar furniture and family photos lining the walls. The only new addition was a large television my brother had purchased for them last Christmas, conspicuously displayed as a symbol of his financial contribution to the family. My mother greeted me with her typical restrained affection, a quick hug and pat on the back. "You look nice, Amanda. Did you cut your hair?" It was the same haircut I had maintained for 3 years. Thomas arrived with his wife Heather, both dressed impeccably in business casual attire that subtly communicated their upper-middle-class status. Jennifer and Daniel came shortly after, with Jennifer immediately launching into stories about her recent promotion at the accounting firm where she followed in our father's footsteps. "The partners are already hinting that I might make junior partner next year," she announced while helping arrange appetizers, youngest in firm history. Throughout the pre-dinner conversation, my career received not a single inquiry. When Daniel briefly mentioned seeing an article about e-commerce growth, my brother quickly steered the conversation toward his son's Little League achievements. Dinner itself was my mother's traditional pot roast with all the fixings, served on the good china reserved for special occasions. My father sat at the head of the table, accepting compliments about his youthful appearance with practiced modesty. "65 looks good on you, Dad," Thomas said, raising his glass. "Here's to another 20 years at least." The moment felt right as dessert was served. I had waited patiently through discussions of neighborhood gossip, Thomas's children's accomplishments, and Jennifer's upcoming vacation plans. No one had asked a single question about my life or business. "Dad, Mom, everyone," I began, my heart racing despite my outward composure. "I wanted to share some news about my company." My father nodded absently, already reaching for another slice of birthday cake. "Heartland Made was recently valued at $20 million, I continued. "We've received several acquisition offers, and I've been featured in Business Insider and Entrepreneur magazine last month." The silence that followed felt interminable. My mother froze with her fork midway to her mouth. Jennifer exchanged a quick, wide-eyed glance with Daniel. Thomas simply stared. My father was the first to respond, his tone dismissive. What exactly does that mean, Amanda? These internet businesses use all sorts of funny math to come up with these valuations. I maintained my composure, explaining in simple terms how business valuations work, our revenue streams, and growth trajectory. I mentioned our office with 38 employees and partnerships with over 400 American manufacturers. Thomas interrupted before I could finish. So, you got lucky with this online thing. That's great, but some of us have been building real careers with actual qualifications. He emphasized the word qualifications while glancing at his wife, who nodded in agreement. It's not luck, I responded calmly. It's 7 years of working 18-hour days, solving complex problems, and building something meaningful. We've helped save dozens of American manufacturing businesses that were on the verge of closing. My mother finally spoke, her voice tentative. That sounds impressive, dear. Though I still wish you had finished your degree. Even with this business, education is important. I felt my patience wearing thin, but I pressed on. Actually, I brought something for Dad. I handed him an envelope containing documentation for the retirement account I had funded. I wanted to ensure you both have a comfortable retirement. My father opened the envelope, his expression darkening as he realized what he was looking at. Rather than gratitude, his face flushed with something that looked remarkably like anger. What is this supposed to be? Some kind of charity? He dropped the papers onto the table. We didn't raise you to throw money around like you're better than everyone. That's not my intention at all, I explained, my voice smaller than I intended. I just wanted to help, the same way I helped with Mom's medical bills, Thomas's house down payment, and Jennifer's wedding. 3 heads snapped up simultaneously. My secret financial assistance was suddenly exposed. You, my father sputtered. That was all you. Jennifer looked mortified. Thomas's expression hardened into something ugly. My mother simply looked confused. You've been secretly paying for things behind our backs. My father's voice rose with each word, playing the big shot with your internet money. I was just trying to help, I replied, my voice now barely a whisper. I never wanted recognition. I just wanted to support the family. Support? Thomas interjected, his voice dripping with sarcasm. By making us feel like charity cases? Some of us work honest jobs with actual degrees, not getting rich quick with online schemes. It's not a scheme, I insisted, feeling the conversation spiraling completely beyond my control. I built a legitimate business that helps American manufacturers reach customers. We employ dozens of people with good salaries and benefits. My father stood up, his napkin falling to the floor. You drop out of college against our advice. Disappear into your little internet world. And now you come back throwing money around like you have all the answers. That's not what I'm doing, I protested, fighting to keep my voice steady. You think your money makes you successful? He continued, his voice rising further. You're still just uneducated trash who got lucky. Anyone can get lucky. The room fell silent. My mother gasped softly, but said nothing in my defense. Thomas looked down at his plate, a slight, almost imperceptible smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Jennifer appeared torn between embarrassment and agreement. William, my mother finally whispered, too late and too quietly to matter. No, my father continued, now fully enraged. I've worked my entire life the right way. I got an education, built a respectable career, raised a family. I will not be shown up in my own home by my dropout daughter. I stood slowly, gathering my purse. I should go. Yes, you should, my father spat. Get out of my house, you lowlife. Your money does not make you part of this family. We have standards. The words hit like physical blows, each one a fresh wound. I looked at each face around the table, searching for any ally, any sign of support, any flicker of recognition for the person I actually was. There was none. Happy birthday, Dad, I said quietly, walking toward the door with as much dignity as I could muster. No one followed me out. No one called after me. I got into my car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. As I pulled away from the house I had grown up in, the familiar street lights blurring through my tears, I realized something fundamental had broken, something that could never be repaired. The drive back to my hotel was a blur. I had to pull over twice when emotion overwhelmed my ability to drive safely. The cruel irony was not lost on me. I owned a multi-million-dollar company, yet I was spending the night in a sterile hotel room in my own hometown because my family's house was no longer open to me. In the quiet of that hotel room, I replayed the evening's events over and over, analyzing each word and reaction. Had I been too forward? Too proud? Had I misread our family dynamic all these years? The financial help I had provided now felt like a foolish attempt to buy the approval I could never earn through my achievements alone. I pulled out my laptop and began documenting every single cent I had given my family over the years. The list was substantial. $75,000 for my mother's cancer treatment, paid directly to the hospital and specialists. $120,000 for my brother's house, covering not just the down payment, but additional renovations he had requested months later. $50,000 for my sister's wedding, including the venue, catering, and the honeymoon she never even knew I funded. Countless smaller expenses: my father's car repair last winter, $22,000, my mother's kitchen renovation, $35,000, Christmas gifts, birthday presents, emergency expenses, all quietly handled through accounts designed to obscure their source. Nearly $300,000 in total, not counting the retirement account my father had just rejected. Money I never expected to be repaid, given freely out of love for a family that had just called me trash. My phone lit up with a text from Jennifer around midnight. "Dad is still upset, but he'll get over it. You know how he gets when his authority is challenged." No apology, no acknowledgement of the horrific things said. Just an expectation that I would absorb the abuse and return to the family dynamic as if nothing had happened. I didn't respond. The next morning, I contacted a therapist in the city where I normally lived. Dr. Richardson agreed to an emergency virtual session that afternoon. "Family wounds cut deepest," she observed after I recounted the dinner, "especially when they target the very things we've worked hardest to overcome." Over the following days, Dr. Richardson helped me understand the complex dynamics at play. My success, she explained, threatened the family hierarchy and the traditional values my parents had built their lives around. My financial assistance, rather than earning gratitude, had created resentment by highlighting a shift in power dynamics they were not prepared to accept. "Your father's identity is built around being the provider and authority," she explained. "Your success challenges both roles." I began a journaling practice, documenting not just the previous night, but patterns throughout my childhood. Subtle ways my entrepreneurial spirit had been discouraged. Times when academic achievements were celebrated while business successes were minimized. The constant reminder that without a degree, I would never truly succeed. This process revealed how deeply I had internalized these messages. Despite outward success, part of me still felt like the family failure, the dropout who had something to prove. This explained my reluctance to openly discuss my achievements and my continuous financial support without recognition. A week after the disastrous dinner, my sister called. I let it go to voicemail. "Amanda, please call back. Dad feels bad about what happened." "We all do. But you have to understand how it looked. You coming in and basically showing off your money. It was insensitive to the rest of us who worked hard for our careers." I deleted the message without returning the call. The narrative twist was breathtaking. Somehow, I had become the villain for simply stating facts about my business after years of minimizing my success. My brother texted next. "Family is family. Let's move past this." No apology there either, just an expectation that I would accept my designated role and the treatment that came with it. 2 weeks after the dinner, I made a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. I would prioritize self-respect over toxic family dynamics. The beach house I had purchased in Naples, Florida, the previous year as an investment property would become my new home. Before leaving, I wrote a letter to my parents, not an angry tirade, but an honest expression of hurt and disappointment. "Dear Mom and Dad, I have spent years seeking your approval and respect. I have supported our family financially while downplaying my success to avoid making anyone uncomfortable. Despite building a $20 million company that helps preserve American manufacturing jobs, I have been made to feel like the family failure because I chose a different path than the one you prescribed. When Dad called me uneducated trash and a low life, it revealed how you truly see me. No amount of success will ever change that perception. I cannot continue to participate in a relationship where my worth is measured by credentials rather than character and achievement. I will always love you both, but I need to create distance for my own well-being. I hope someday we can rebuild our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect. Love, Amanda. I sealed the letter and mailed it from the post office personally. No response came in the days that followed. With the help of my executive assistant, I arranged for my personal belongings in Ohio to be packed and shipped to Florida. I instructed her to donate most of my furniture and clothing to local charities, wanting a fresh start with minimal baggage, both literal and figurative. My company, Heartland Made, could be run remotely with occasional trips back for important meetings. The leadership team I had built over the years was strong enough to handle day-to-day operations without my physical presence. As I boarded the plane to Florida, I felt a complex mixture of grief and freedom. The family I had tried so desperately to please was behind me, but so was the burden of seeking approval I would never receive. Naples, Florida, greeted me with warm sunshine and salt-scented air. A stark contrast to the gray Ohio winter I had left behind. My beach house stood on a quiet stretch of shoreline, a modern two-story structure with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Gulf of Mexico. I had purchased it as an investment property the previous year, but had only visited twice for brief vacations. The property felt impersonal when I first arrived, like an upscale hotel rather than a home. The real estate agent had handled the furnishing with standard luxury vacation home decor, attractive but soulless. Making this house truly mine became a form of therapy. I started with the primary bedroom, replacing the generic beige bedding with handcrafted quilts from one of my Heartland-made artisans in North Carolina. The mass-produced art came down, replaced with original pieces from emerging American artists I had discovered through the business. Each morning, I woke to the sound of waves and the sight of authentic creativity surrounding me. The kitchen transformation came next. I installed open shelving to display handmade pottery from our Vermont and New Mexico partners. The industrial-grade appliances remained, but now colorful hand-woven textiles and locally crafted wooden serving boards warmed the space. Establishing routines became essential to my healing process. Each morning began with a sunrise walk along the beach, bare feet in the cool sand, collecting shells and watching dolphins arc through the waves offshore. I found a local coffee shop run by a Cuban-American family where I became a regular, greeted by name rather than order. Running the business remotely proved easier than anticipated. Video conferences replaced in-person meetings, and our established systems functioned smoothly with minimal adjustment. Without the daily commute and office distractions, I found myself more productive, making clearer decisions from my peaceful new headquarters. My executive team visited after the first month, spending 3 days in strategic planning sessions on my oceanfront deck. Several commented on the positive change they noticed in my leadership style. "You seem more centered," Amanda, Marcus, my operations director, observed, "more confident in your decisions." He was right. Without the undercurrent of seeking family approval, my business instincts flowed more naturally. I trusted my judgment without the shadow of my father's criticism hanging over each choice. Community involvement became another anchor in my new life. I joined the local Chamber of Commerce and a businesswomen's networking group. Unlike in my hometown, where I had downplayed my success, here, I was open about my company and achievements. The respect came naturally, without the baggage of who I had been before my success. I befriended Eliza, the owner of a local art gallery, who introduced me to her circle of friends. These were accomplished women in their 30s and 40s who valued each other for present achievements rather than past credentials. Our weekly dinner gatherings became a highlight, filled with laughter and conversations that never once included questions about my education or suggestions that I had merely gotten lucky. The unexpected visit came 3 weeks into my Florida residence. My brother Thomas arrived unannounced at my door one Saturday afternoon. "Nice place," he said, whistling as he surveyed the ocean view from my living room. "Really nice." His appearance was jarring in my new sanctuary. He looked out of place in his button-down shirt and pressed khakis amid my casual, coastal decor. "What brings you to Florida, Thomas?" I asked, not offering a drink or a seat. "Family," he replied with the same confident smile he had used to charm our parents since childhood. "And I could use some advice about an investment opportunity, possibly a loan to get in on the ground floor." Some patterns were too predictable to be surprising. Without my parents as an audience, his pretense dropped quickly. This was a financial visit, nothing more. "I'm not making any loans to family members anymore," I said firmly. "That chapter is closed." His expression hardened. "So that's how it is. You move to your beach mansion and forget where you came from. Dad was right about you." "Dad called me uneducated trash and kicked me out of his house," I reminded him. "Is that what you came here to reinforce?" Thomas backpedaled quickly. "He didn't mean it like that. You know how he gets. Family fights happen." "That was not a fight. It was a revelation," I replied. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have plans this afternoon." After showing him out, I sat on my deck, watching the waves, surprisingly unshaken by the encounter. The boundaries I was establishing felt right, even if they were painful to implement. That evening, I made a significant decision. I contacted my lawyer and established an anonymous scholarship fund at the community college I had briefly attended. The Amanda Wilson Entrepreneurship Scholarship would provide full tuition and mentorship to 5 students annually who demonstrated entrepreneurial potential but lacked traditional academic advantages. Make sure the selection criteria focus on demonstrated initiative and creative problem-solving, not grades, I instructed. And find mentors who have built actual businesses, not just top business classes. As weeks passed, my house truly became a home. I planted a garden of native Florida species that attracted butterflies and hummingbirds. I adopted a rescue dog, a mixed breed named Charlie, who accompanied me on beach walks and slept at the foot of my bed. His uncomplicated affection was a daily reminder of how relationships should feel. I found unexpected peace in solitude. Without the constant underlying anxiety of family judgment, I discovered aspects of myself previously overshadowed by that stress. I took a pottery class at a local studio, terrible at it, but enjoying the meditative process. I tried paddleboard yoga, spending more time in the water than on the board, but laughing through each attempt. 3 weeks turned into a month, then 6 weeks. The pain of family rejection remained, but transformed into something less acute, more like an old injury that occasionally ached rather than a fresh wound. I was building something new here, not just a home, but an authentic life aligned with my values rather than someone else's expectations. Then came the unexpected development that would bring my family story full circle in ways I never anticipated. The Naples Business Journal was not a publication I normally read, but Eliza texted me early one morning, insisting I pick up a copy. Page 3. "You're going to want to see this." The feature article profiled local business owners making an impact beyond Florida. There, I was photographed on my deck with the Gulf of Mexico behind me, under the headline, "E-commerce innovator brings multi-million-dollar business to Naples." The journalist had done her research, detailing Heartland Mate's growth from startup to $20 million valuation, our impact on American manufacturing, and my recent entrepreneurship scholarship foundation. The article painted a picture of success far more comprehensive than anything that had appeared in my hometown media. "I didn't authorize this," I told Eliza when she called to congratulate me. "Public records," she explained. "Property transfers, business registrations. Once they knew you were here, the rest was easy to piece together. Besides, it's a great article." She was right. The piece was well-researched and flattering, focusing on business accomplishments rather than personal details. I thought little more about it until the following week when my phone began lighting up with social media notifications. The article had been picked up by several larger business publications, then shared extensively through LinkedIn and Facebook. Former high school classmates suddenly remembered our friendship. Teachers claimed they had always seen my potential. Most surprising were the messages from several small business owners in my hometown, thanking me for representing what was possible without following traditional paths. "You inspired me to finally launch my business," wrote one former classmate. If you could build something so substantial without a fancy degree, maybe my idea has merit too. The local newspaper in my hometown ran a condensed version of the article with an additional angle: local entrepreneur makes national impact. The irony was not lost on me. The same community that had subtly reinforced my parents' disappointment now celebrated me as a hometown success story. Through this ripple effect of publicity, my family inevitably discovered the full extent of my success. The first sign came as a friend request from my cousin Susan, followed by several other extended family members who had previously shown little interest in my life. Then came the text from my mother. "Saw the article about your company. Very impressive, dear. Dad and I are so proud." No mention of his cruel words, no acknowledgement of the rift, just a casual claim of pride that had been notably absent when I sat at their dinner table. My father's voicemail arrived the next day, his tone artificially jovial. "Amanda, big news about your company in the paper. Always knew you had it in you. There seems to have been a misunderstanding last time we spoke. Call me back when you can." A misunderstanding. That was how he characterized calling his daughter uneducated trash and ordering her out of his house. 3 days later, my mother texted again. "We are thinking of visiting Florida next month. Would love to see your new place. Let us know if that would work for you." The message landed like a stone in my stomach. 6 weeks of healing, of building a new life free from their judgment. And now they wanted to simply appear at my doorstep as if nothing had happened. I didn't respond immediately, instead scheduling an emergency session with Dr. Richardson. "You have several options," she advised after listening to my concerns. "You can decline the visit entirely. You can agree, but set strict boundaries about what you will and will not discuss. Or you can see this as an opportunity for honest conversation that might lead to healing, though that requires their willingness to acknowledge the harm done." After careful consideration, I texted my mother. "You and Dad are welcome to visit, but we need to have an honest conversation about what happened at his birthday dinner before we can move forward. Please let me know if you're open to that kind of discussion." Her response came quickly. "Of course, dear. We just want to put this behind us and be a family again." The phrasing troubled me, that desire to put this behind us without addressing it directly, but I confirmed dates for their visit the following month. As the day approached, I prepared both practically and emotionally. I arranged for them to stay in a nearby hotel rather than my home, preserving my personal space. I role-played difficult conversations with Dr. Richardson, practicing setting boundaries without becoming defensive. My parents arrived on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. I met them at a beachfront restaurant for lunch, a public setting that would help moderate the initial interaction. They looked smaller, somehow less intimidating than they had in Ohio. My father's confident posture seemed diminished. My mother more nervous than I remembered. They both dressed formally despite the coastal setting, my father in a button-down shirt and slacks, my mother in a structured dress better suited to church than beach dining. "This place is something else," my father said, gesturing at the turquoise water visible through the restaurant windows. "You've done well for yourself, Amanda." The slight emphasis on "for yourself" did not escape me, the implication that my success existed in isolation from family values. "Thank you," I replied, simply, not filling the awkward silence that followed. My mother jumped in with small talk about their flight, the weather, how different Florida was from Ohio. I responded politely, but did not help carry the conversation. Finally, after our food arrived, my father cleared his throat. "About what happened at my birthday dinner. You called me uneducated trash and a lowlife," I stated calmly, maintaining eye contact. "You told me to get out of your house, and that my money did not make me part of the family." His face flushed. "I was surprised by the news about your business. It caught me off guard. I may have overreacted." Not an apology, an excuse. "I need to understand," I continued, "was that reaction about me sharing my success, or about learning I had been helping the family financially?" "Both," my mother interjected. "It felt like you were showing off. Like you were saying you're better than us now." "I never said or thought that," I replied. "I spent years hiding my success to avoid making anyone uncomfortable. I helped financially because I could, and I wanted to support the family I love." My father shifted uncomfortably. "Well, the way you presented it was very forward, and finding out you were behind those other things. It felt like charity we never asked for. The conversation continued in this vein throughout lunch. No genuine apology emerged, only justifications and attempts to minimize the severity of what had transpired. The subtext became increasingly clear. They were here because my public success made rejecting me socially awkward, not because they had reconsidered their assessment of my worth. As we finished our meal, I made a decision. I'd like to show you my home. But first, I need to be very clear about something. I will not pretend the dinner never happened. I will not accept being called names or having my choices denigrated. If you want a relationship moving forward, it has to be based on mutual respect. They exchanged glances before my father nodded stiffly. That seems reasonable. When they arrived at my beach house later that afternoon, their expressions as they took in the expansive ocean view told me everything. This tangible evidence of my success was impossible to dismiss or minimize. The $20 million valuation was no longer an abstract number, but manifested in beachfront real estate and tasteful luxury. "This is quite something," my father managed, his voice tight. "Would you like a tour?" I offered. As I showed them through the house, pointing out handcrafted items from Heartland-made artisans that decorated each room, I realized something profound. Their approval, which I had sought for so long, no longer held the power it once did. I was proud of this home and the business that made it possible, regardless of their reaction. This revelation was perhaps the most valuable outcome of their visit, worth more than any apology they might have offered. The conversation that followed my parents' tour of the beach house was difficult, but necessary. We sat on the deck overlooking the ocean, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed too beautiful for such a tense discussion. "I want to be clear about something," my father began, his tone more conciliatory than I had ever heard it. "I am sorry for what I said at my birthday. It was uncalled for, regardless of how surprised I was." The apology, while welcome, carried a qualification that diminished its impact. His focus remained on his experience of surprise rather than the harm his words had caused. "What hurt most," I replied carefully, "was that those words seemed to reveal how you truly see me, despite everything I have accomplished." My mother reached across the table, not quite touching my hand, but gesturing toward it. "We have always been proud of you, Amanda. We just worried about your future without a degree." "My future is here," I said, gesturing to the house and the business that had made it possible. "I built it without a degree, but with 7 years of working harder than most people ever will. That deserves respect, not condescension." My father shifted uncomfortably. "The business world can be fickle. Companies rise and fall overnight. We just wanted security for you." "I understand that concern comes from love," I acknowledged, "but there is no perfect security in any path. Plenty of people with degrees struggle financially, while others without formal education thrive. What matters is recognizing there are multiple valid paths to success." The conversation continued for hours as the sun set and stars appeared over the gulf. No dramatic reconciliation occurred. No tearful group hug that magically healed decades of misunderstanding. Instead, we reached a fragile understanding, a starting point rather than a conclusion. Moving forward, I explained as the evening drew to a close, I am open to rebuilding our relationship, but with clear boundaries. I will not accept being demeaned for my educational choices or having my success attributed to luck rather than hard work and skill. My parents agreed. Though I sensed my father's reluctance in his tight smile and the way he qualified his responses, my mother seemed more genuinely receptive, perhaps recognizing for the first time the role she had played by enabling family dynamics that had caused so much pain. After they returned to Ohio, I reflected deeply on the visit and the path that had led me here. The healing process was far from complete, but significant steps had been taken. I maintained limited contact with my parents in the months that followed, brief weekly phone calls that gradually became less awkward. My relationship with my siblings evolved differently. Jennifer eventually offered a genuine apology for her role in the family dynamics, and we slowly rebuilt a connection based on adult friendship rather than childhood patterns. Thomas remained distant, occasionally sending holiday greetings, but making no real effort to understand or acknowledge the harm done. My personal healing. journey continued with regular therapy sessions. Dr. Richardson helped me recognize how family trauma had shaped my approach to business and relationships, creating patterns of seeking validation through achievement and financial generosity. Success is not a substitute for self-worth, she reminded me, and family approval cannot be purchased, no matter how much you give. This insight led me to establish clearer boundaries in all relationships. I became more comfortable discussing my accomplishments without minimizing them. I learned to give from genuine generosity rather than as an attempt to buy acceptance. The Entrepreneurship Foundation became a central focus of my philanthropy. Beyond funding scholarships, I developed a mentorship program pairing successful entrepreneurs without traditional credentials with promising students facing similar challenges. Witnessing their growth and success brought a satisfaction deeper than any family approval could provide. My friend circle in Naples expanded, creating a chosen family based on mutual respect and genuine connection. Our weekly gatherings became a source of joy and belonging I had never experienced in Ohio. These relationships, freely chosen and maintained, taught me what healthy support should feel like. The beach house transformed completely over time. Every room reflected my authentic taste and values rather than generic luxury. The garden flourished with native plants that attracted wildlife. Charlie, my rescue dog, gained a companion when I adopted a second dog from the local shelter, a senior retriever named Luna, who everyone had overlooked. Running Heartland Made remotely proved so successful that I implemented flexible work policies for all employees, allowing them to work from anywhere for part of the year. Productivity increased, and employee satisfaction scores reached all-time highs. 1 year after my move to Florida, I hosted a dinner party for my new friends. As we gathered around the table on my deck, watching dolphins play in the sunset waves, I realized how completely my life had transformed from that painful night at my parents' house to this chosen family. Eliza toasted, raising her glass, to having the courage to prioritize respect over obligation. The sentiment captured exactly what I had learned through this journey. Family connections are valuable, but not at the cost of dignity and self-respect. Success cannot be measured solely by degrees or traditional achievements, but by the lives we touch and the positive impact we create. Most importantly, I learned that forgiveness does not require forgetting or continuing to accept harmful treatment. True forgiveness is an internal process of releasing anger and resentment while still maintaining boundaries that protect your well-being. My story is still unfolding, as all our stories are. The relationship with my parents continues to evolve, sometimes progressing, sometimes regressing to old patterns. I maintain my boundaries with compassionate firmness, accepting that complete understanding may never come, but refusing to compromise my self-worth in seeking it. If my experience offers any wisdom worth sharing, it is this: your value is not determined by others' perceptions, especially those clouded by outdated beliefs or expectations. Success comes in countless forms, often unexpected ones, and sometimes the most painful rejections lead to the most authentic and fulfilling paths forward. Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your own path? Did you face criticism for taking an unconventional route to success? Share your experience in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and hit that share button to help others who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. Thank you for listening. Take care and good luck.